Declan, why are we always chasing happiness? Why does it feel like, regardless of what it is that we achieve, it's never quite enough?
Brad, it's a good question. And I think it comes down to, for ages now, for generations, we have fundamentally misunderstood the relationship between happiness and success. What I mean by that is we tend to think that happiness is the byproduct and outcome of success. And in happiness research, we call this the hedonic treadmill or the happiness trap. And the easiest way to know if you're on it, the hedonic treadmill, is I'll be happy when. Insert anything you want after it. And so we set these external milestones of, this is when I'll be happy. This is when my life will change. And we get there and we go, nothing seems remarkably different. I haven't set the target big enough. I need to set the next goal, the next goal, the next goal. And so we're always chasing. And you've hit the nail on the head. The funny thing with happiness is the more we chase it, the harder it is to catch. And now I'm actually going to reference something here. We can even look at the Declaration of Independence, right? Yeah. And the pursuit of happiness is what was preserved as an inalienable human right. They didn't say happiness is an inalienable human right, or the cultivation of happiness, or the experience of happiness, or the realization of happiness. It was the pursuit of happiness. So for hundreds of years, I think we've falsely categorized happiness as, hey, this comes after success if we pursue it hard enough and fast enough. And it's only now, thanks to positive psychology and thanks to really good research in well-being science, that we're going, hang on, what if we've had that relationship backwards for a few hundred years? What if instead of happiness being the outcome of success, success is more likely if we focus on the skills of happiness first?
How do we decouple that? So if we're seeing happiness as the byproduct of success, how do you propose we sort of decouple that and flip the script and flip the logic?
I think the first thing we need to do is start looking at winning the inner game rather than the outer game. So what I mean by that is, when we talk about skills associated with happiness, and that's what I've dedicated my career to, studying what are the skills that people can learn and work on and improve that lead to them living happier, more fulfilling, and yes, more successful lives. And historically, these skills have been called soft skills. We try to call them human skills now. So things like emotional intelligence, empathy, communication, effective leadership, decision-making, productivity. Like, these are all skills we can build.
Yeah.
But for most people, as they're going through their career path, I was reading a study a while ago. There was an article in the Harvard Business Review. It said 90% of people's formalized learning and development is focused on technical skills to make them better at their job, and only 10% is focused on the human skills that make them a better human being. I think we need to reverse that. Especially in this day and age, in the era of machine learning and automation and artificial intelligence, we need to go, hey, 90% of our learning and development time needs to be put into the skills that make us better human beings, the skills that make us more likely to be happy, the skills that lead to better outcomes and make us more likely to be successful. The rest will take care of itself.
I couldn't agree more. So, and I should have briefed you on this ahead of the time, and maybe you did look into the show ahead of our conversation, but we speak to the staffing and recruiting industry. So by in large, technology is disrupting that industry. AI, automation, artificial intelligence, anything that we could do to be better, faster, stronger at finding job orders, finding talent, that is going the way of robots, whether or not we want to admit it or not. The soft skills, the human skills, though, is what makes the industry great, right? It's putting the right people in the right jobs at the right time is all soft skills. Being able to talk to candidates, being able to talk to sales teams, and being able to talk to prospects and clients. And it's interesting, as you're alluding to, we're spending 90% of our time on the technical side of the role that might not even be needed in 2 to 3, maybe shorter years, when we should be focusing instead on those soft skills.
100%. And I think, I'm actually excited about this it's almost a new industrial revolution that we're in at the moment with artificial intelligence and machine learning. And the reason I'm excited is because if we go back, say 100, 150 years to the first big industrial revolution, the majority of the workforce at that time was employed in what we call work of the hand. It was agriculture, manufacturing, labor work. It was physical demanding work. Then we started having factories, equipment, machinery come in. Big disruption there. And now what we have, particularly in the US, in Canada, in Australia, where I am, New Zealand, UK, the vast majority of people are employed in what we call work of the head. So specialized knowledge work, right? Be it recruiting industry, be it lawyers, doctors, right? They're specialists in knowledge. What I hope is going to happen now in this wave is the reality is we're not going to be able to compete in work of the head with artificial intelligence and with machine learning. It's just not going to happen. So I hope that what it's going to lead to is this change where the majority of humanity starts being employed in what I hope we're going to call work of the heart, the distinctly human skills. You know, being, as you said, even in the recruiting industry, being able to actually help someone feel heard and seen and validated and valued in changing roles or being placed into the right job at the right time. My hope is that's going to become critically more valued and important as we go through this new industrial revolution we're facing.
Hey, it's Brad taking a short break to tell you about my friends over at Tricom. What if your back office fueled your growth instead of holding it back? Tricom makes it happen. From payroll and billing to accounting and asset-based lending, Tricom clears the roadblocks, empowers your path forward. Your team gets paid, your cash flow stays steady, and your business scales like never before. Tricom doesn't just support you, they set you up to soar. To learn more about my friends over at Tricom, visit tricom.com. That's TRICOM.com. All right, let's get back to the show. I do too, right? I think the staffing and recruiting industry is a fantastic industry to be a part of, right? I see the reviews that come in for all of our clients on a regular basis. And it's the opportunity to put somebody who's down on their luck into a role. It's finding someone, not their first job, but their second, third job. It's staying with somebody through the longevity of their career, continuing to work with somebody. I mean, that's happiness at the end of the day, right? It's finding the right opportunities for somebody. It's putting people to work so that they can be happy. They can fulfill what they're looking to do. They can take care of their family. They can live the life that they want. And at the end of the day, it's not necessarily about the job. It's about the byproduct and the outcome of what the job provides. And I think that there's a lot of staffing firms that lean into that. I think the best staffing and recruiting firms lean into that. It's, yes, I can find you a role, but what does it really mean to you, right? What is this really going to do for you, the person? And I'm with you. I hope that that's the outcome of this sort of revolution as we're seeing with artificial intelligence and AI.
And I'll touch on something that you just said there. I think what excites me about, as you said, the best staffing recruiting firms do that, right? They focus on the human skills, on the longevity, on the human elements, the connection. And what excites me about that is, as a happiness researcher, I know for a fact that what we do for work and our career has an impact on our lifetime happiness. It would be remiss of me to say that it doesn't, because we spend so many hours of our life working. And so if we ignore it and we go, well, hang on, someone's fundamentally unhappy and unfulfilled in their role at work. Yeah. I'm not saying it's impossible to then be happy in other parts of life. It just makes it harder.
I think it's exponentially harder in, I'm going to say, today's world than it was even in former worlds. That's going to be articulated poorly. But if you think about the fact of, perfect example for you, my dad works on cars. When he leaves at 5 o'clock, that job's over, right? It might still weigh on him. It might still weigh on him a little bit, but he can't physically go work on a machine when he's at home. Now, when we have this world of working from remote land, working wherever you are, I'm interviewing you from Australia, I'm in Buffalo, New York. I can work whenever, wherever, as long as I have a phone. Work doesn't end, right? I physically sometimes can't shut off. And I think that weighs on people more. So when you have sort of this shift in how people are working, where people are working, when people are working, it has even a bigger opportunity to weigh on people in terms of their overall happiness, because it's not just 9 to 5. Now it's 24/7. This job is weighing on me because I'm connected in all angles.
Yeah, which when we talk about the skills and science of happiness, I mean, talk about really critical skills right now in the way we work at the moment. Effective boundary setting and being able to uphold that. Being able to have third spacing between work and home so we can change what role we're in and whether we feel like we're in work mode or we're in home mode. Being able to prioritize effectively. I so often see in the world of work at the moment this false urgency where everything seems to be urgent and important and critical right now. And something that I am grateful that I took from our previous general manager at BU Happiness College, the social enterprise that I run. Our previous general manager used to say to me, he's like, Declan, we are not currently doing active brain surgery. No one is going to die if this gets pushed back to tomorrow. We have time to think about this. We have time to weigh it up. And just that permission to go, hang on, so much in our modern way of work that we deem as urgent is it actually urgent? Like, can we question that? Because if everything's a priority, nothing's a priority. So to be able to have that conscious, intentional, what actually is urgent and important here, what actually is a priority, that is a skill that I'm seeing have increasing dividends on people's happiness and their performance at work.
Yeah. Declan, I want to stick in the workplace for a second. How important is our coworkers' happiness to us? How important of a role do I play on the happiness of somebody that I'm working with day in and day out?
I love that you've asked this because I think a lot of people miss this point of happiness. And I personally, although I work in this space and I've written a book in this space, I do blame a little bit the self-help industry because the self-help industry is very focused on happiness as an individualized construct.
Right.
Happiness is my responsibility. It's on me to do alone. If I want to be happier, I need to work on it personally, which there are elements of truth to that. I'm a big believer that at the end of the day, everyone's happiness is their personal responsibility. And we can't control other people's happiness or force happiness upon others. But boy, oh boy, can we influence happiness in others. And what we know from the research is it's actually the best way to go about creating happiness in a sustainable way. So I now try to share with people this notion that happiness may start within, but it's nourished and cultivated collectively. It's nourished and cultivated communally, in the sense of community, together. And so what we know from the research around that, which really excites me because, when I started my company, BU Happiness College, 8 years ago, I set this insane vision of, okay, we're here to grow global happiness. Now, we're a small team based out of Australia. And I'm going, how are we going to shape the happiness of the planet on our own? Right? And then I was doing all this deep dive into the literature around something called the contagion effect or the ripple effect of happiness. So what I found is when people intentionally work on their happiness skills or their human skills or soft skills, when people intentionally learn them and get better at them, not only do they become happier, there is a measurable impact to the happiness of those around them. And there was a study that came out of one of the Scandinavian countries that said that impact could be measured to 3 degrees of separation. So I want to put that in context of work. If you work on your happiness skills and you feel that you're feeling better at work and you're thriving more effectively, your teammate's wife's sister is going to have a noticeable and measurable impact on her happiness levels. That is how contagious our emotions are. And we've all felt it. You go into a workplace and everyone's feeling well that day, it's contagious. You pick up on it. You go in and someone's not feeling great, you pick up on it, right? We have this ability to spread a ripple effect. We already are spreading a ripple effect. Every day you go to work, you are spreading a ripple effect to the people you interact with. My invitation to people listening to this conversation is, how intentional are you about making sure that that is a positive ripple effect that you can be proud of?
Is the negative ripple effect as strong as the positive? Is it 3 degrees of separation if I come into work and I'm fired up because I was stuck in traffic? People are mean mugging me on the way. I come in and you can feel when someone has negative energy, right? And that's sort of very contagious in a room. Is that to the extent of positive ripple effect, or where does that sort of end?
I don't know the data around the degree of ripple effect with it, but what I do know is in some ways it's more memorable. So we all have something in our brain called the negative cognitive bias, which is just our brain is more likely to remember and hold on to difficult things. If 10 things go well in your work week this week and one thing goes horribly, what's the one that we stay up at the end of the day remembering? The one that went horribly. And that's good in a way. It's a survival mechanism. Like our brain evolved to be able to look for threat. The problem is a lot of us are now only focusing on the bad in the world, and that gets magnified. Like we see this in the media, we see this in social media, like the bad gets magnified, the good gets 100%. Overlooked. And so 100%. What we know from positive psychology is there is this ratio, they call it the golden ratio of whether someone will feel good at work. Because the reality is you're not going to be happy every moment, every day at work. Not every moment's going to go well, not every job is going to be placed, not every candidate's going to be stoked. This is just the reality of work. And so what they recommend doing is kind of looking at your work week or maybe the last month and jotting down in a spreadsheet. And you can do this, just jot down a bit of paper. What's the minutiae of your work? Like, what do you actually do day by day? And get as much down as possible. Your client calls, client meetings, like follow up, sending documentation, like write it all down. And then go through and go, what are the tasks that give me energy and that give me a sense of happiness in some degree? So it might be happiness expressed as contentment. It might be happiness as accomplishment. It might be happiness as joy or as pride. Like there's all these different forms of happiness, So notice them first, color them green. Then go, what are the tasks that are just part of my job and part of my role. I don't lose energy to them, but I don't really gain energy to them. They need to be done. They're yellows, so they're net neutral. And then what are the tasks that I actively dislike? I lose energy to them. I procrastinate on them. They leave me feeling stressed, anxious, overwhelmed, exhausted, fatigued. They're reds.
Yeah.
The goal, if people want to feel happy and fulfilled at work, is a 3-to-1 ratio of greens to reds. So if you go, hey, there are 2 parts of my job that I'm just not a huge fan of that are just a necessity, they need to be done. I'm looking for 6 things that you do week by week that give you a sense of accomplishment or fulfillment or joy or connection to outbalance those 2 negative ones. It's not equal. It is weighted towards the negative. So we need 3 times as many good.
I love that. I started a while ago a folder on my desktop. It's titled Screenshot Awesomeness. And this comes from a guy's name's Brian Fanzo. I used to follow him a while ago. He was a social media consultant, and I followed him way back when he was speaking at Social Media Marketing World. And his whole philosophy was there's a lot of negative in the world. And because that negative weighs on you more, screenshot the awesomeness, put it in a folder so that when you are having a rainy day, you can go back to all the good things that you're doing. So, for me, it's reviews of the show. It's people shooting me a LinkedIn message saying they like the show. Maybe it's a good client call or good feedback, whatever it might be. Maybe every now and again, I'll drop a picture of me and my family into that folder, whatever it might be. Just something that I can screenshot that awesomeness at that particular moment. And I could say, you know what? Wow. Because yes, 1,000 emails a day, 15 phone calls, whatever it might be. Yes, there are good things, but there's also bad things that go in every single day, and there's no way around that, right? And if it's the 3-to-1 ratio, I can get behind that. But for me personally, it's having that on my desktop to say, listen, it's been a tough morning. We're going to have tough mornings. We can't get around that. But let's take just 3 to 5 minutes to reflect back on the success that we had in January, feel good about that, sit in that for a minute, and then let's restart and keep going.
I love this. I call that, we do a similar thing with all our members at the college. We call it create a win wall. Like, what is your wall of wins that you can go back to and look at to remind yourself of things that you're capable of? Because what we get a lot of people who come to the college who are naturally sort of that high achiever drive. They're really good at setting the next goal and the next target. I imagine you see this a bit in the staffing and recruiting industry as well, that very high achiever, type A, all or nothing perfectionistic sort of personality. And it astonishes me how quickly people of that sort of personality, and I fall into that a little bit myself, can reach things that they wished for years. They're like, that's the goal. That's the milestone. Oh my God, we're going to get there. And then we get there and we celebrate for all of 2 minutes? Yeah. And then we're on to the next thing. So having that, the win wall or the document on the computer that you've got, to be able to go, hang on, we can revisit that feeling of accomplishment. We can it's not gone just because it happened 3 months ago or a year ago. We can tap back into that.
Why is it so hard for us to sit in our happiness and sit in our success? And I want to give you a bit of context there. And I bring a lot of myself to the show, and I think that's what makes it so relatable. So this past Sunday, I ran the Buffalo Marathon. First marathon, 4:39:14, felt great, did it. That was a year-long journey. I signed up last June. So 160 runs, 700 miles, getting diet and HRV, resting heart rate, getting it all dialed in, a year-long journey. Finally, I have the culmination of that run. Declan, I'm not lying when I tell you, less than 72 hours later this morning, I'm already on runsignup.com looking at the runs that could happen in the fall. Why, Declan, is it so hard to just sit in our happiness and sit in our success?
Yeah, and look, I'll share with you, I know this feeling because I did my first marathon last year, and a similar thing happened. I finished the marathon and I went, I've done it. I set out to do a marathon in my life. I've accomplished it. Happy days, tick. And now I've been studying the science of happiness for over a decade. Okay. So I at least marinated in that happiness for about 24, 48 hours. So then I found myself about 3 days later going, I could have run it faster, I think. Or if this happened instead, or maybe if I did this in my training, maybe I would have got a better outcome. And I'm doing the same thing where I was like, what's coming next? Without stopping for a moment to go, do I actually even want to run another marathon? Like, why am I doing this? Right. And I think the reason why this is so common is because of that negative cognitive bias. We know that the brain is wired a little bit more to marinate in difficulty, right? And I call it, we often marinate in the tough and we navigate quickly through the good. Where in reality, we want to train our brain to do the opposite. How do we marinate in the good and navigate effectively and healthily through the difficult parts of life, because they are going to exist. They're going to be there. Thankfully, we know that the brain is malleable. It's like muscle. We can train it. We can redirect it. So thanks to neuroplasticity, we can learn new mental skills. So gratitude practice and savoring are two of the best skills to retrain the brain to be able to actually appreciate when things go well and not just zip through them really quickly. To answer your question of why is that so hard, it's because most people haven't practiced those skills.
Yeah.
It would be like, actually I had a conversation recently, I'll dob myself in on this one. I had a conversation recently with someone, and they know that my whole ethos is happiness is a skill, which means you need to work at it, learn it, practice it. You're going to suck at it for a while, and then you'll get better and better and better. And I was saying to them, oh, wow, you're such a good artist. I wish I could draw like you. And they said, well, Declan, when was the last time you practiced drawing? I said, look, probably when I was about 8. And they said, okay, so you're a man in his 30s who draws like an 8-year-old. And I went, yeah, you're right. And they went, why are you expecting anything otherwise if you haven't practiced since you were 8?
Right.
And I went, oh, shoot, you're correct on this. Like the reason it's so hard and I'm quote unquote not a good artist or not good at drawing is I haven't practiced it for decades. So when I say to people, hey, how often are you practicing? And when I say practice, intentional conscious practice, gratitude, appreciation, savoring the good moments, sitting in it, mindfulness, and being able to stay present rather than racing ahead. The vast majority of people go, never? Like, have I ever practiced that intentionally? Okay, so maybe this is your invitation. There's probably some people listening to this now going, oh yeah, that's me. I'm in that bucket. Cool. So now's your chance to start practicing those things. And over time, you'll get better at them because I don't know, as far as I know, unless anyone's figured out a way to reverse time, the next 10 years of our lives are going to pass no matter what. And you can either spend that 10 years getting a lot better at the skills that lead to happiness and success or not. 10 years is going to pass either way.
And I can tell you, as a father of 2, I know you got one on the way. That time's going to go even faster, my friend. It is going to go even faster come a couple weeks from now for you. When we think about sitting in that, then, is that journaling? Is that meditating? Is that having, carving 30 minutes a day to just say, I'm going to reflect? What does that look like as a practice for someone who is listening, saying, yeah, that is me. I'm in the exact same boat as the two of you. I have a really hard time sitting in my success, sitting in my wins, sitting in my happiness. So what is the action? What do I do to become better at that?
Yeah, so there are 2 boxes we want to tick with this. A practice for presence and a practice for awareness. Now, I'll break that down a bit further. Practice for presence, anything meditation, mindfulness, anything that helps us just stay attuned to the present moment. So I know one that's actually really popular with kids, but I find it works really well for adults too, is the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 technique. Just randomly throughout your day, look around you and go, what are 5 things I can see right now? What are 4 things that I can feel? What are 3 things I can hear? 2 things I can smell? 1 thing I can taste. Now, normally you only need the first 5, 4, 3. And what happens is we're captivating the senses. We're coming back into the current moment. So most of the time our mind's racing. It's thinking, what do I need to do in an hour? Did I respond to that email? What happened yesterday? Where am I going a week from now? We're anywhere but here. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, tuning into our senses, really quick, tangible, effective way to come back to the present. I find it a bit more accessible for people, especially if you're new to meditation. Then a lot of people try to jump in the deep end of meditation, do the seated silent meditation, eyes closed, still their thoughts. And they go, wow, I suck at this. I'm like, yeah, because you're doing the hardest type straight away. It'd be like walking into the gym, loading up your max deadlift and trying to lift straight away. You're going to hurt yourself.
Right?
Let's not do that. Let's warm up.
Exactly right.
So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 is my warm up for mindfulness, right? Then you can do your guided meditations. Being in nature is also really good for a lot of people. There's a concept out of Japan called Shinrin-yoku, which is called forest bathing. You can actually be prescribed this by a doctor, which I love in Japan. Like if you're stressed or overwhelmed or anxious, they'll say, hey, 3 lots of 30 minutes per week. We want you to just go be around nature. Just sit in nature. It stills the mind.
Sign me up. I know,
right? Brilliant. So that's another good one for presence. Then our other box, awareness. Awareness is all about how do we take our inner world, our thoughts and our feelings, and get them outside of our own head. Because if we're trying to solve them in the place they originate, we are playing at a home court disadvantage. And we don't win that often. So we need to get them out so we can see them more clearly. So to your point, journaling, fantastic one. Now, whether that's written journaling or There's an app called Otter, which transcribes. You can just talk and it'll transcribe it.
Yeah.
So I like vocal journaling. I'll go for a walk and talk with myself. I'll talk about what's on my mind and what's happened in the day, and I'll just record it all and it'll transcribe. That's a good way to get them out. The other good way, good conversation. Whether it be with a coach, a good friend, a counselor, a therapist, a psychologist, getting your thoughts and feelings out of your own head and into a space where you can work on it collaboratively is a really good way to bring that awareness point. So any of those, but if you can do something each week that helps with presence and something each week that helps with awareness, you're going to be miles ahead.
Yeah, you alluded to getting in nature. I think our phones have a way of doing everything they can to not make us happy. We think they are the catalyst for happiness. It's really just a drug, right? It's a dopamine crash that comes and goes, right? We're constantly checking for notifications. We're constantly checking for buzzing and beeps, and it's a glorified slot machine, right? They're just trying to get your attention in any way that they can. So I actually saw, maybe it was Sahil Bloom. I think he posted the other day on Twitter, find more reasons to not have your phone. And that's really the key that we're all looking for, right? I've been trying to be better with that. And then I think it's also just, and maybe the reason that I loved running as much as I did in the prep for the marathon is, if I'm at the gym, it's easy to look at your phone, right? You're in between sets, you have a minute or two, whatever it is, your phone's laying on the floor, you pick it up, maybe you have a notification, you fire off a text, you fire off an email, that's easy. If you're running, it's very hard to answer an email while you're running. And I loved the thought of no headphones, listening to nature, some of those long runs where you're out there for 2-3 hours, it's just you, it's solitude. You can think, you can talk, you can do whatever you want to do. My wife and I, we used to joke because I did a lot of laps around the local cemetery. And she's like, what do you do? I was like, well, I talk to people, right? Like, no one's going to talk to me back, but I have a lot of conversations with a lot of people. And that was very therapeutic for me, right? It's still very therapeutic for me. But I can't speak more highly in terms of, finding my happiness, in terms of being around people that I love, being in groups of people that I love, being around family, networking with, not really networking for the sake of networking, but networking to have conversations like this, and unplugging as much as I can.
Yeah, it's a powerful thing to do. To your point on the phone part, one of the best things I can recommend for people, if you want to do that awareness and that presence point, turn off all the notifications on your phone except for phone calls. All of them. Turn off text message notifications, email notifications, because then you are in charge of when you look at these apps rather than them interjecting. It is one of the best and easiest things. It's free. You can do it right now. Pull your phone out, go to notifications, turn them all off. If something is, this goes back to the thing we spoke about before of false urgency. Yeah. If something is genuinely urgent, people will call you about it. Right? It's not going to come in an email or a text message if it's genuinely urgent. Someone's going to call. So, the best things you can do, go turn off all your notifications. Keep your phone call notifications on. Everything else is silenced, and you can tune in for when you want to look at them.
Hey, it's Brad taking a short break to tell you about an offer exclusive to listeners of Take the Stage. 30 minutes of strategic marketing consultation with me, completely free. Hey, whether you're looking to drive more sales or more job applications, I want to help. Visit bit.ly/stage offer. Pick a time that works best for you. That's it. Again, whether you want to drive more applications or more job orders, I want to help. That's bit.ly/stage offer. All right, let's get back to the show.
Where do we go with workplace happiness when I'm thinking personally from the remote work setting, right? So work alone a lot. How do we have more workplace happiness amongst teams in collaborative efforts if we are in remote settings? And I know a lot of the recruiters that we work with are the same way. Even a lot of the staffing teams we work with are in the same way, where we're getting more disconnected, right? And you have to be more intentional with the connections that you make when you are in a remote setting. How do you propose teams become more centralized as they become more decentralized?
Well, let's talk about what connection is, right? Because you're right, we're becoming more disconnected in many ways. So disconnection is interesting at the moment because I said before, we know so much from the research that happiness is built collectively. It's built around connection. We are a social species, but we are living in a time when we're more quote unquote connected than ever before. Like the fact that you and I are recording this, live conversation in 2 different continents, 2 different time zones would have been unimaginable one generation ago, right? So we're more connected due to social media and technology and all this. Like it's wild. But we're also facing a loneliness crisis. Right? We're seeing rates of loneliness and disconnection be higher than ever before. So I'm really curious about this sense, like you, of how do we have connection in workplaces where people are increasingly reporting feeling disconnected and isolated and lonely? My answer to that is we need to define and solve what connection actually is in the first place.
Okay.
From my perspective, connection is shared something. Shared experience, shared memories, shared values, shared goals, shared purpose. Any of these are potential for us to forge and cultivate a sense of connection. And so to leaders of organizations, I'd say, okay, in the past, the shared was easy. It was shared office space, right? It just happened as a byproduct of work.
Yeah. I can't ignore you if I'm bumping into you at the water cooler.
Exactly, right? Whereas now we need to be so much more intentional about, and we measure, by the way, so one of the tools we developed off my master's thesis was a workplace happiness survey. So we could build out workplace happiness diagnostics and measure the things that lead to happy organizations. We use it on our own team as well. And I noticed over the last few years when we went fully remote, we had an office space, and then during the first round of COVID lockdowns, we got rid of the office space. Everyone liked working from home, and we noticed things like self-determination, work-life balance, all these things went up, but our connection scores dropped for the last 2 years. And so late last year, I had a meeting with our team. I said, hey, I'm noticing this. A lot of things are going up. Connection is dropping. If connection is built on shared something, what are we sharing? And I left them with that. And they came back to me and they said, okay, shared purpose, we need to talk more about what the long-term vision for BU Happiness College is and what we're trying to achieve here. They came back and said, shared experience, we want to do a quarterly team get-together where we talk about the strategy and our goals, which will give us shared goals as well. But we want to also do something fun to build connection as a team. I went, okay, easy, we can do that. Right? And shared micro goals was the third one that they came up with. And they said to me, at the time, I was quite busy. I was, writing more of my master's thesis. I'd done some travel. I'd had a lot of work projects on. And I hadn't been as available to them as a leader as I once was.
Sure.
I went, hey, we're missing just doing little off-the-cuff check-ins with you to go, what is the micro step? What is the micro goal that we feel we're sharing this week? That gives us a sense to collaborate, especially because a lot of our team specializes in certain areas and branches of the company.
Yeah.
And so I started going, well, let's have team meetings, just really short, once a week, team get together. Everyone shares what their highest priorities are and if there's anything they need help with and that they would like collaboration on. So now we have our guy who manages our content marketing working with our head of personal happiness coaching, talking about how they can collaborate on using content marketing to drive more enrollments at the college. They hadn't previously connected and worked together before.
Sure.
Right. And so again, I think just going back to your team and going, hey, if connection is shared something, what is our something that we are sharing? And how do we all play a part in upholding that?
Yeah, I love that. We at Hilly Marketing, we have weekly huddles. So real short huddle just to check in amongst the team, see how things are going. We have then bigger, longer form meetings where we're actually breaking down, your biggest challenges. We run out of the EOS system over here. So any issues, challenges that you're working through, your rocks, things like that. And I find that to be incredibly helpful. I think the huddles are a little bit more impactful for me. Yes, the L10s, you're unpacking high level issues that need to be resolved. Good conversations, good questions. But those huddles are beneficial just to check in with team members, see how things are going, see those quick wins. How can I help? What can we do? Things like that. I find those incredibly, incredibly helpful. So I appreciate your insight there as well. Declan, when we think about the next stages of happiness, so we think about and maybe we can wrap it up here with this, where we think about where the world's headed. So an increase in AI, an increase in technology, an increase in mobile phone usage, an increase in the rise of television and second screens and even third screens in the home. What's sort of your, one message to the listener if it was to summarize how somebody could be happier tomorrow or today? What do you wish that they would do?
Look, it's a good question to end on. I'm going to give maybe an unexpected but remarkably honest answer here.
Yeah.
And my answer to this is, for the majority of my career, so I've been studying happiness now for over 10 years. I've dedicated my career to it. And for most of it, I've been pretty confident in being able to say, we're living in the best time of humanity. And it's only been in recent years that I've started to question that. And ask myself, are we? Are we actually moving in the right direction anymore? And there's so many examples I could give for that. What my hope is, the reason I still hold on to hope when we're seeing We're seeing global conflict happen again. We're seeing rises in illnesses that we thought we'd beaten as a species. We're living through a major economic crisis in a lot of countries at the moment. What my hope is that keeps me going is now more than ever, I'm finding people are ready and hungry for tangible and practical ways to play their part in making the world a bit happier. I think there's this real human hunger and desire at the moment to, instead of just going, how do I be happier? More and more people are asking, how do I help the happiness of my neighbor and my partner and my child and my friend and my workmate? And that excites me. So my message I'd leave everyone who's listening to this conversation with is, you are already playing a part in spreading a ripple effect of happiness. My invitation to you is to be extra intentional about it now. Go and learn about the skills and science of happiness. Go upskill in the skills of happiness and those human soft skills that we've been talking about throughout this episode. Make that your highest priority for your learning and development for the next 12 months. And I promise you, not only will you become happier as a result, you're likely to also become remarkably more successful. And also the impact that you get to have on others just becomes profoundly larger. And my hope is, if even a fraction of the people who listen to that conversation do that, we're going to make a better world.
Declan, before I run you through our quick rapid fire round, I want to give you the floor to tell everyone a little bit about yourself and about your organization and what it is that you do.
Yeah, so, and I appreciate that, man, because I think a lot of people wouldn't really know what a happiness researcher is or what that does. I know I didn't for most of my career.
Yeah.
If you asked early on, what do you want to be when you grow up? I don't think happiness researcher was even an option that we spoke about in school. Right. So I've dedicated my life to studying.
I'm going to be honest, though, either was a content marketer at the time either. So
true, very true.
certainly wasn't.
Yeah, man, the world of work is evolving rapidly.
Sure.
So what I have dedicated my career to is studying from a scientific lens. What does it mean to be happy? And how do we become happier and use that to make the world happier? So that's through a field called positive psychology. So evidence-based, how we go from neutral to plus 10, how we fulfill our potential. What are the tangible skills and tools we need to all get better at if we want to live more fulfilling lives? As a result of that, I spent years studying all these different modalities, traveling all over the place, learning from these great minds. I went, this is taking me so long and so much time and money to learn all this. I joked offhandedly with my fiance at the time, still my wife, so thankfully she stuck with me through this. I said, wow, wouldn't it just be so much easier and more convenient if there was a college dedicated to teaching people the skills of happiness instead of just teaching people the skills to be a good employee? And at the time, we'd been traveling, actually the US, we were in the US for about 3 months. We'd burnt through most of our savings. And I said, when we get home, I want to quit my job and start something new. And she went, what do you want to do? I said, I want to start a happiness college. She went, okay. And how are we going to fund that? And I went, well, that house deposit we've been saving. Again, I told you guys listening that she stuck with me through this. So thankfully she said, screw it, let's do it, let's have a crack. And that was now over 8 years ago. We've got members and graduates in 5 countries. We partner with individuals to teach them. It's like having a personal trainer for your brain, right? We joke sometimes that we're either like a personal trainer for your brain or we're the Harvard of happiness. So people from all around the world come and learn these skills and science of happiness with us. And then organizations also invite us in for their learning and development initiatives and for their people voice strategy to be able to measure the happiness and the employee experience of their teams so that they can make sure that they are a great place to work and they can stand out as a competitor in the recruiting field and attract and retain the best talent. So that's my life's work. I'm very, very grateful and proud to do it.
Do you want to land more clients and close more deals in 2025? Haley Marketing is offering big savings to help staffing firms like yours grow. Get $1,000 off targeted marketing campaigns, free tools to track your hottest leads, and no setup fees on services that help your company get found online. Plus, we'll even help you stay in touch with prospects for free. But you need to act fast. These deals end June 30th. You visit bit.ly/Bialy offer to find out more information. Again, that's bit.ly/Bialy offer for more information. All right, let's get back to the show. It's been fantastic talking to you, Declan. I got one question for you before I let you go. One book that has fundamentally changed your life.
Man, I'm going to give a very loving shout out to one of my very, very first mentors, someone who fundamentally helped set me on a good path in life and helped me ask the right questions to figure out what happiness meant to me. And that's a man by the name of Sebastian Terry. Some people know him as the bucket list guy. He wrote this great book called 100 Things, where he just wrote down after a very close friend of him passed away very young. He asked himself, if my friend knew he was going to pass away, would he have changed anything about how he lived? And he realized his friend wouldn't have changed anything. He was living a life very true to himself. And he turned the question on himself and said, if I knew I was going to pass away this year, what would I change? And he realized he'd change a lot. And he wrote a list of 100 things that he thought would make him happier. So his bucket list, and he set off around the world completing them. He's now a very well-recognized keynote speaker, motivational speaker, authority figure on the value of intrinsic goal setting and setting goals that matter to you. His book, 100 Things, is a fantastic starting point for that.
He's Declan Edwards. Declan, genuinely appreciate our time together, my friend. It was a fantastic conversation. I know I got a ton out of it, and I know our listeners did as well. I appreciate you getting up early here. Good luck in fatherhood. Good luck with the baby on the way. Can't wait to hear all about it, man. It's a fantastic journey, and enjoy every minute of it, my friend.
Brad, thank you so much. And thank you again for inviting me onto the show to spread that ripple effect of happiness on an even broader scale throughout the US with this one as well.
You got it. You take care.